In Aldebaran duel, you are the leader of a space fleet attempting to conquer and dominate as much of the new planetary system as you can. Discover planets, colonize them, and use their mineral resources to build spaceships, striving to gain supremacy over your opponent within 3 epochs. Will you be the one who builds the most efficient civilization? The goal of the game is to use cards cleverly to get the highest score within 3 epochs. Who is the game for? As suggested by the title, Aldebaran Duel is a game for 2 players aged 12 or older. It takes up to 90 minutes. Game preparation. Choose a colour and take 10 wooden markers and a wooden cylinder in your colour. Prepare the game board with scales. Then each player puts the cylinder in their colour on 0 on the score counter. Every time you get points, move your cylinder up the score counter, framing the board with scales. Put both players' markers at the start position of each scale. The game board includes energy, food, metal, and science production scales. Other scales indicate military, trade, and diplomacy levels. Randomly, draw 4 scoring tiles and place them in their areas at the respective scales of energy, food, metal, and science production. In your first games, use only the tiles with grey background on the front side. Tiles with blue background are recommended for advanced players. Divide the cards in 3 epoch packs, referring to numbers 1, 2, or 3 on their back. Shuffle the packs and place them face down. Take 6 cards from the first epoch pile and place them face up, forming a 3x2 grid. Prepare the wildcard resource and space objects tokens within the reach of both players. Each player gets 5 randomly chosen science cards. They keep 1 and give the remaining cards to the opponent. This is repeated until both players have 5 science cards. Put the board of influence next to the game board. Place the grey cylinder in the centre of this board. How the game works. The key mechanism of this game is playing cards. Each card has 2 functions. It can either be used as a means of payment or it can be added to the player's empire. Using a card as a means of payment. The symbol at the bottom shows which resource the card represents. There are 4 types of resources: energy, food, metal, and science. If the card has been used as a means of payment, put it on the discard pile, adding the card to the player's empire. To play a card, you need to pay. The price is shown on the left side of the card. The top section of the card shows the effect which is triggered when the card is played. Some cards have the symbol of a colonized planet in their top left corner, stating the condition for playing the card. Colonization ships, space shuttles, and production stations have a symbol of the space object in their bottom right corner. Gameplay. The game consists of 3 epochs. Each epoch consists of turns. The players take turns until they both pass. Then the epoch is over and the players receive points. In the first epoch, the younger player starts. Later epochs are started by the player who was the first to pass in the previous epoch. In their turn, a player needs to take exactly 1 of the following actions. Choose cards from the offer. Play a card from their hand. Pass. Choosing cards from the offer. Choose 1 or 2 cards with a total price of up to 3. The value of the cards in the bottom row is 1, the value of the cards in the middle is 2, and the value of the cards in the top row is 3. Take the selected cards to your hand. The hand limit is 7 cards. Science cards are not included in the limit. Move the remaining cards bottomwards to fill the empty slots and then fill the free slots in the grid with new cards from the pile. Playing a card from hand. To play a card, its price needs to be paid. This price can be paid in the following ways. By discarding cards with respective resources. If the card shows 2 types of resources, choose one to pay with. Any resource can be replaced by any 2 resource cards from your hand. 2. By paying with wildcard resource tokens that replace energy, food, or metal. 3. By resource production. Card price is reduced by resource production. At least 1 card or a wildcard resource token must always be paid for each card, no matter if the price could be reduced to 0 by resource production. Passing. If you can no longer choose cards from the offer or play cards from hand, you need to pass. Your turns in this epoch are over. The cards on your hand are kept. Types of cards. Production Station. Upon playing the card, move your marker on the production scale of the respective resource up by 1. Space Shuttle. There are 3 space shuttle types in the game: military, trade, and diplomatic. Upon playing the card, move the marker on the respective scale up by 1. Planet. The effect of planet cards of the first or second epoch planet added to the Empire is not triggered before the planet is completely colonized. The effect of the third epoch planet cards is triggered immediately when they are played. Colonization cards. They can be added only to a planet. They cannot be played separately. The top right corner of colonization cards shows a coloured quarter of a planet to be added to cards of planets. Colonization ship. A colonization ship can be added only to a fully colonized planet. The effect is triggered immediately. Resource production. If you play a card with the effect of raising the production of one of the resources, energy, food, metal, science, move the marker on the scale of the respective resource up. Resource production is permanent and reduces the price you pay for playing cards. Even if your production of all the resources you need is equal to or greater than the price of the card played, you have to pay with 1 resource of any type or a wildcard token. Colonization of planets. To colonize planets added to your planetary system, add colonization cards to the white and coloured quarters with a white border. Only colonization cards in matching colour can be added to a white bordered coloured quarter. Any colonization card can be added to a white quarter. Upon adding a colonization card to a planet, execute its effect. Once you complete colonization of a planet by filling all the empty quarters on the card, execute its effect immediately. This rule does not apply to third epoch planets where the effect is triggered immediately upon playing the card. Space objects tokens. During the colonization of planets, you can get space objects tokens, stations, shuttles and ships. If you add a colonization card with space object symbols, take as many tokens of the corresponding space object as had already been present on the planet before the card was added. Combined with specific cards, these tokens bring points at the end of the game. Example: before you added a colonization card, 1 symbol of a colonization ship had been present on the planet, so you get 1 token. Later, you add another card with a colonization ship symbol to the same planet. As there had been 2 symbols of colonization ship before you added the new card, you get 2 more colonization ship tokens. Now you have 3 colonization ship tokens. End of epoch and the start of a new epoch. Once the pile of the current epoch runs out of cards, only the cards remaining in the offer can be taken. When no cards remain in the offer, players can still play the cards from their hand. If they cannot play any cards or want to keep them for the upcoming epoch, they pass. Once both players have passed, the epoch ends. At the end of each epoch, take the following actions. Research. Evaluation of dominance in the universe. Evaluation of regular point production. Research science cards. At the end of each epoch, each player can play one of their science cards. The player who was the first to pass in the previous epoch starts. Science cards are played in the same way as other cards. Cards with the science symbol are used as the means of payment for playing these cards. The science symbol is shown in the lower section on epoch cards or some science cards. Also here, 2 epoch cards with any resource can replace 1 science unit. A wildcard token can be combined with any card or 2 wildcard tokens can be used to replace 1 science resource. The price for playing a science card is discounted by the value of your current science production status. Your science production may be equal to or greater than the card's price, but even here you need to pay with either 1 card with any type of resource, or with a wildcard resource token, or with a science card without a resource symbol. A science card may have an immediate or permanent or both. Evaluation of dominance in the universe. At the end of each epoch, dominance in the universe is evaluated. 1 by 1, compare the difference in the position of the markers on the military, trade and diplomacy scales, and mark them on the influence board as follows. Move the cylindrical marker vertically by the number of squares matching the difference on the military scale in favour of the player with the higher military status. If there is no difference, do not move the cylinder. Move the marker horizontally by the number of squares matching the difference on the trade scale in favour of the player with the higher trade status. If there is no difference, do not move the cylinder. Evaluate the difference in diplomacy. If the difference is 1, the player with the higher diplomacy status moves the marker by 1 square horizontally or vertically at their own choice. If the difference is greater, the player with the higher diplomacy status moves the marker diagonally toward the corner in their colour and moves their cylinder, in their colour, up the score counter, referring to the scoring chart. Once all 3 steps have been done to reflect the difference, evaluate dominance in the universe by referring to the current position of the grey cylinder. The player with military dominance gets the number of points suggested by the position on the board. The player dominating trade gets the number of points suggested by the position on the board and the number of all their planets already added to their empire. If, after evaluation of diplomacy, the grey cylinder is in either the red or the blue quadrant, the respective player gets additional points according to the number marked in the particular square. If the grey cylinder is about to move out of the board, it stays in the grid, and the player in whose favour the cylinder was supposed to move immediately gets 2 victory points for each square the cylinder was supposed and could not be moved by. When the epoch ends, the cylinder stays at its current position. Evaluation of regular point production. Move your cylinder on the score counter up by the number of points matching your regular point production. When regular points are scored, the next epoch starts. Players can keep cards from the previous epochs on hand. They also keep their unused science cards and wildcard resource tokens. For the upcoming epoch, prepare 6 cards of the new epoch. The player who was the first to pass in the previous epoch starts. After the 3rd epoch, the game ends. End of game. After the 3rd epoch, the game ends. At the end of the game, perform the standard evaluation of the epoch. Then, evaluate dominance in the individual resource production sections. Players get rewards from the scoring tiles depending on whose status on individual production scales is higher. Example, the player with higher energy production gets 2 points for every grade on the military scale. In this case, the red player gets 6 points. In the case of a tie, the profit is awarded to both. Now score points for space objects tokens. According to the number of symbols on the cards of space objects, determine the point value of 1 token of each space object which you gained. Refer to the scoring chart provided in the rulebook. Multiply this value by the total number of respective tokens which you gained. Finally, you get 2 victory points for each fully colonized planet. The player with the highest score is the winner. Single-player game. In the single-player game, the goal is to collect as many points as possible. Game preparation is similar to the 2-player game with these tiny differences. Pick one of the 2 colours and put only the cylinder in your colour on 0 on the score counter. Place only your marker on the regular point production scale. Randomly take 7 science cards. Look at the cards, keep 5 and put the remaining 2 back. Then put the single-player opponent's action board in front of you within your easy reach and lay 8 single-player mode action cards in a pile next to it, face down. The board and the single-player action cards simulate your opponent. The gameplay is the same as in the 2-player version. The opponent's turns are simulated through action cards and the single-player action board. In the 1st and 3rd epoch, you are the starting player. In the 2nd epoch, the opponent starts. In your turn, take one of these actions. Choose cards, play a card or pass, following the rules stated above. Then perform your opponent's turn. If you pass, your opponent passes too, automatically. Opponent's actions. Take the top card from the pile, turn it face up and add it to the first empty position next to the action board. Then execute its effect. When there are 4 cards added to the board, start placing new cards from the top bottomwards again. In the course of the game, 2 cards will be added next to each position on the board. When the 8th card is used, collect the cards, shuffle them and create a new draw pile. Effects of action cards. card with marked positions of epoch cards. Immediately remove the epoch cards in the positions marked in red from the offer. If these are cards with value 3, remove only the card which is indicated by the complementary icon on the board. Lay the cards aside. If the marked positions are empty, remove the closest lower card instead. If no cards remain, the card has the same effect as a blank action card. Card with an arrow, according to the direction of the arrow, move the opponent's marker on the game board by 1 position. If the arrow is directed towards military/trade/diplomacy, move the marker on the scale where the opponent's status is the lowest. A blank card has a 0 effect. End of epoch. At the end of an epoch, you can play 1 science card. Then evaluate dominance on the board of influence. If, after evaluation, the grey cylinder is in the position where the opponent is supposed to get points, subtract half of them, round it up, move your cylinder towards 0. Add score according to your regular point production status. End of game. Proceed as in the duel mode with the following exception. When evaluating dominance in individual resource production scales, you are awarded additional points only on the condition that your marker shows higher production status than your opponent's. If your status is equal or lower, you get no additional points. If you manage to get 100 points or more, congratulations, you have won the game. Final word. As in any new game he designs, also in Aldebaran Duel, Vladimír Suchy brings original unique mechanisms. This time, it is an expanding universe with an innovative system of assembling planets which will grow right before your eyes on the table. There is no obvious strategy to win in Aldebaran Duel. Victory can be reached in many ways, and that makes every game different. You will need to exhibit strategic and logical thinking as well as good planning to succeed in this thrilling clash of 2 empires. How do you like Aldebaran Duel? Leave us a comment below the video. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Play games and keep in mind that Dino, so much fun!